YouTube video, I'm going to show you how to prune this Korean Hornbeam. It's a beautiful tree with lots of density and lots of ramification, but it's become a bit top heavy. And many people wonder that it looks nice, but I think it could be improved much more. And I'll just say something about the design of most bonsai, whether they are deciduous bonsai or evergreen bonsai. The shape of most bonsai is conical. So you can see the conical shape, but it's become a bit too top heavy. So what I'm going to do very briefly is to show you how to trim this. Many people are afraid to trim, but don't worry, you won't kill the tree and you won't hurt the tree. In fact, ramification or the twigginess of the trees comes from pruning the tips. If you constantly prune the tips, you will get more density. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm not doing it at random in case you think I'm just doing it willy-nilly without considering the design. I am aiming to make a tighter conical shape to the tree. And even when it's growing during the summer, one needs to continually keep it trimmed. I'm just going to do one side first, and then you will see the difference between one side and the other side. So if you can see already, I've created that conical shape there, but I've tightened it much more. The bottom I'll leave because that's quite nice there. So that's what I've done. You can see the difference between this side and that side. This is much tidier now. So I'm going to do this side now. Twigginess in bonsai or ramification is something you cannot hurry. It has to take time. And the more ramification a tree has, the more valuable the tree becomes. And of course, the value of the tree depends on its beauty, so we're making it more beautiful by doing this. Many people are afraid to prune, but don't be afraid. So can you see how I've tightened the whole top? It's become much tighter. Now let's go around the other side. There you are. So during the growing season, you will continually have to keep trimming it to maintain that conical shape. And some of these branches can be wired to make bigger branches. So that's the pruning done. It's on video, isn't it? So we're repotting this tree because it's very pot bound. It's time it goes down. Okay, Steve, can you tilt it up so I can get at the bottom? The roots always tend to go to the perimeter of the pot. So both the sides and the bottom. You'll find that this will be like a bird's nest. But it's a sign that it's a very healthy tree. Only healthy trees produce good roots. If a tree is not healthy, then you won't get good roots. Okay, more. People who are new to bonsai are always afraid to repot or cut the roots. They think you'll kill the tree. But not so. By doing this, you're going to stimulate more growth and the tree will become healthier. So rather than kill the tree, you're going to make it more healthy. So repotting is an essential part of bonsai maintenance and bonsai care. large trees like this with 2 men, it makes the repotting easier. I know it's possible to do it with 1 person, but if you have 2 people, then one can hold it while you tackle the roots, especially the roots at the bottom. You really need to have someone hold it up. Okay, we go to the side next. Many people have asked me what would happen if you didn't repot the tree. It will continue to grow, but it will go downhill because the tree will get so pot bound that it will not be able to breathe air and take in nutrients. So you have to do it. With deciduous trees, we reckon every 3 or 4 years for mature trees is okay. Conifers can probably be repotted less often. Literally like a bird's nest. Such a vigorous tree. I cut the roots as I go along, because unless I cut the root I can't get into the really congested parts. This is the ideal time to do the tree. The buds are just beginning to move and the tree is certainly not in leaf yet. So this is the optimum time to do it. Never repot deciduous trees once they come into leaf. You can do it, but if you do it, you've got to remove all the leaves because the leaves take up so much moisture that it will dehydrate the tree. In the UK, we start repotting at the end of January or early February. This is now the 3rd week in March, so there's still time to do it. And the conifer trees, we can do slightly later. Okay. A little more again, Steve. You notice what we're using. There are several types of rake. This is the normal stainless steel rake. This is okay for trees up to about 30-40 centimeter. But this single prong rake is also useful when you come to doing really serious trees like this. The double prong Japanese rake is the ideal tool. You see how efficient it is. 2 prongs is double the efficiency of the single prong. Okay, so we're going to put it into a new pot. And I'm just going to see if it fits this pot. Try and see if it fits that pot. Perfect. What judgment? There you are. Now all we have to do is tie the tree in, and if we put a little bit of sphagnum moss, okay, Steve, if you just prepare the pot. The good bonsai pots now all come with these tying holes. So the large holes are the drainage holes and the small holes are the tying holes. So there are 2 pairs of holes. There are 4 small holes, so we can put 2, that means 2 wires in. And we can put the mesh at the bottom. I'm a bit lazy. I don't anchor the mesh with wire. I just leave it there because when you put the soil in, it's not going to go anywhere. So you don't have to worry too much about it. I will put a small layer of the drainage material, and I'll use Huga soil for that. I'll just bring some Huga and show you. For the more valuable trees, I do use very good material. This is Huga soil. This is a Japanese volcanic pumice, very light. I prefer to use it as a bottom layer, just a tiny layer, no more than about 5 centimeters. And then I will put this magic material, which is the sphagnum moss. I've explained to you on several of my YouTube videos. The sphagnum moss has got some magical properties. It helps to regenerate roots. So if you put a bit of sphagnum moss at the bottom, it will help the tree to produce new roots very, very readily. Not everyone does that, but I've found that this is a trick that really works well. There you are. I always prefer to keep the mound slightly raised. Some people think that the water will not go in if it is raised, but it will go in because the water will just run in. I'm just trying to straighten some of these crossing roots so that I have a good system of radial roots going into the soil. Crossing roots I will just remove. And this is our standard bonsai mix, which I've explained in my other video on bonsai soils. So we have a soil which consists of sphagnum moss peat, orchid bark, which is pine bark, and then I have akadama, and then I have the Japanese volcanic grit, and some Huga as well. So there are 5 different ingredients that go into our magic mix. But as I've always explained, different people have different formulas for soil. This soil works for us, and I reckon you can use most soils. But what I don't tend to do in our nursery is I never use akadama on its own because I find that that dries out too much. So I prefer to have pine bark and peat and other materials mixed in it. So that potting procedure didn't take much time. I think much of the time was spent in cutting the roots off because it was fairly pot bound. I put it in a slightly deeper pot because it's more comfortable for the tree. If you put it in a very shallow pot, it may look nicer, although I didn't think it looked nice in too shallow a pot, and it will help the tree to grow better, and it will be a more healthy tree for that. You tighten the wire and that is done. Thank you very much.